Hello, everybody, and welcome to your special live broadcast with Gretchen Heidel. I am going to be going over the United States Pluto Return, which came to a peak today, 2/22/2022. However, make no mistake, it is going to be active for a very long time, and we're going to be going over the dates and the times and the different things. So I'm broadcasting live simultaneously on Instagram and on Facebook Live. And then I'm going to be posting this pre-recorded on YouTube afterwards. So welcome everybody who is joining. Go ahead and post your astrological sign below. You know, I love to hear that and to see that. But I'm going to be going over the United States Pluto Return, which is a pretty big deal. It's an exciting, interesting time in history, and I'm going to be going over the history of a variety of different returns, specifically the British Empire. I'm going to be going over that and what happened in their Pluto returns, because the United States has never had a Pluto return before. And so this is very big news in astrology. So it does look like some people are joining. Like and share, and go ahead and post your astrological sign. I know it's a impromptu kind of jumping on here to talk about this. I love seeing everybody's names and faces and everything, but I want to go over this because it's really a big deal. Okay, so I'm just kind of waiting for a moment here while people join. I have Corbin. Yay, Corbin. Nice to see you. You and I fell, Corbin, at the same time. We both got the same, almost similar injuries. Patty, Scorpio, welcome. Good evening, Rita, welcome. And I'm not sure, nobody has said anything yet on Instagram. We have, I'm not sure how you say it, Manjula, Pisces, welcome. Corbin's still a Scorpio. Yes, you are. So we're going to go over the United States Pluto return. So what is a Pluto return? We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the dates that it's really active, and we're going to be looking back a lot in history during this broadcast. It's going to be a little bit different than my weekly broadcast. I'm not going over the week this time. I'm specifically talking about the United States Pluto return, which is going to be active. Just going to give you the spoiler alert right now. Between 2022 and 2023 is the peak of this return. However, this is going to be going on for quite a while. So I'm going to jump in and let's get started. So 27 degrees Pluto, which is where Pluto was at the time of the United States birth, basically. So the most popular birth chart, and there's a lot of different birth charts that are used for the U.S., and I have the U.S. popular birth chart here, which is called the Sibley chart, and this puts the time of the U.S. birth on July 4th, 1776. It's so fascinating to me every time I say, oh, United States birthday, and people go, United States birthday? Like they've never heard of 4th of July before. It's fascinating to me. So yes, it's 4th of July, 1776 was what was going on at that time. And this chart uses 5:10 p.m. in the later sort of afternoon, early evening. There's a lot of different theories because nobody knows exactly when the Declaration of Independence was signed, so nobody knows the exact times. Nobody was looking at the clock, I guess. But this is a very popular chart, and this is the most popular chart that people use as far as the United States birth chart. Amir, hey, and Angela, welcome. Jackie/Lavender, welcome. Good to see you again. Jackie, I just figured out who you were. I was like seeing this person named Lavender. I was like, who is that? Jackie. So welcome. I haven't seen, I have Joanne on Instagram here. Welcome. And so basically, I'm going to be using that chart and talking a lot about that chart from July 4th, 1776. So what is a return? So the planets are always doing returns. Probably the most famous return is what we call our birthday. So a solar return is literally when the sun returns to the same point okay, as it was on your birthday. And we celebrate that as a birthday. That's the solar return. And so we have many different, though, returns. We have Mars returns, we have Venus returns, we have Mercury returns. And another famous one, the second most famous return, is the Saturn return. A lot of people, even if they don't know much about astrology, they hear about Saturn return and they're like, oh, I know what that is, you know. So that's a popular return. So the Pluto return is a big deal because it only happens roughly once every 250 years or so. Pluto has a very weird orbit because it's whatever status it is, planetoid or whatever they're calling it now, mini planet. So because it's a smaller planet, it has an oblong orbit instead of a circular orbit. So that's why in some signs, it's in some signs for 10 years, it's in other signs for 15 years. That's why Pluto's orbit is a little bit unpredictable in some ways because of that. We can't say it in astrology. I mean unpredictable in the fact that I can't say, oh, well, this happens once every whatever. So basically, it's roughly 250 years. So obviously, you and I are never going to have a Pluto return because science has not figured out how to help us to live to be 250 years old. So we never go through a Pluto return in our life. And so it takes that long to go all the way around the sun. Okay, that's basically what the deal is. So Pluto was here at the time of July 4th, 1776. And it's right here in current time. So you can see it went all the way around the chart and now it's back into its home zone. And I'm trying to show Facebook and Instagram here, Pluto on Pluto. That means that we are in the Pluto return to the same spot. Why it's a big deal? Because it's a big deal that we are having these big major life lessons. Pluto, if you remember, is death and rebirth and transformation and Phoenix rising. Something's falling down before something rises up. Now, we have all been through the ringer in the last few years, if you know. So let's recap really quickly. 2020, okay, that was the Great Conjunction, okay, where Saturn and Jupiter met up, but also Pluto was in the middle of all of that. So Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto were all meeting up together. So it was really a triple conjunction. It was also the closest great conjunction to the Earth, and that was like a big, huge deal. We had 6 eclipses in 2020. That was extra. It was a little bit, a lot of eclipses. Then in 2021, last year, all year, we had a Saturn-Uranus square going on, which, oh my gosh, that's a big, huge deal in itself. The last time that happened was during 9/11. Okay, so that was a big thing. And now this year we have the Pluto return. So you can see the last few years, this time frame, I have been worried about this time frame for a very long time. And in this time frame, now we have the Pluto return. What's different though, I'm going to use the example of last year with the Saturn-Uranus square. What's different is the Saturn-Uranus square, Saturn and Uranus were square each other in the sky for everybody. If you lived in the United States, if you lived in Brazil, if you lived in England, it didn't matter. Everybody is experiencing the Saturn-Uranus square. That time is very closely associated with economic downturns. Like I said, 9/11 happened during that time. Before that, in the 70s, was the gas rations and all the stuff that was going on. I've talked about this a lot in my live videos, but I'm using that as an example because this time is a little slightly different. Not everybody is experiencing Pluto return. So obviously, if you live, let's say, in India, you're not living in a nation that's in their Pluto return currently. You and I are not having our Pluto return because that's not humanly possible. It happens every 250 years. However, where we live, big picture, is experiencing the Pluto return. So we are living in the United States, so everybody is going to be affected that lives here. And the United States is a big major player in the world. So if something happens in the United States, it often affects, it has these big ripple effects through the world because we're one of the strongest, nations, and we have a lot of power and whatever. So it's something that we have to keep in mind. So it's almost like, I'll give you an example. Let's say your spouse was living in your house and was going through their Saturn return. You're not in your Saturn return, but your spouse is in their Saturn return. Well, your spouse is going to be going through some stuff, okay? And so that Saturn return is kind of a hard time too. Pluto return, Saturn return, right? Like these are hard times. So you might not be personally affected by your own Saturn return at that time, but since your spouse and you're living with your spouse and your spouse affects you, then you will be going through stuff with your spouse. So like if your spouse, I don't know, loses their job or, has to take care of an elder parent or has a problem, okay, so that's not your elder parent, that's your spouse, but it's going to affect your life, right? Because it's all that ripple effect. So it's a very important distinction to make because, yeah, you and I are going to be affected by the United States return if you live in the United States. However, it's not happening for each and every one of us on a personal level. So global politics, like the bigger picture politics, like you turn on the nightly news and everything. Now, obviously, if the United States goes through some kind of a problem, and let's say, because one of the things, and I'm going to circle back to this, but one of the big things with this return is definitely economics. I mean, it's just, there's no doubt about it. So, having said that, if the United States is all of a sudden stuff, you and I could suffer. We could suffer from that because that could affect you and I's bottom line and our pocketbooks and our wallets and our digital bank accounts. It could affect us on a personal level. So it's a distinction that we need to make because we're not all going through a Pluto return, but where we live is, and that's going to affect us on a rippled basis. Okay. So I wanted to talk about a couple of interesting things that happened. We did have our half return. And or you could say the Pluto opposition. And we have no reference point for what the United States Pluto return is going to be because we've never done this before. This is the very first time. It's kind of exciting, I guess, in some ways, but it's the very first time the United States is going through this. So, but we have the half return to reference. So again, going back to the famous United States Sibley chart, the United States half return, Pluto would have been up here. Let me see, where am I? Okay, right here. I'm trying to do this backwards on camera. So Pluto would have been up here instead of down here. That would have been its halfway point, its opposition, its Pluto opposition. And guess when that happened? 1930s. It happened during the Great Depression. It happened during, all the wars and the different things that were going on, the different wars. There was also a lot of pro-fascist movements back then. There was a lot of so when we look at Pluto, it's extremism. It can be terrorism. It can be nuclear. It's all the stuff. It's Pluto in mythology is equivalent to Hades, the lord of the underworld. Okay, it's dark. And there was actually in the 1930s the Dust Bowl, which was droughts in the Midwest to West. Okay, where there was a lot of lost agriculture and problems, very bad drought situation. That was called the infamous Dust Bowl. That all happened in the 1930s. So that's what the United States opposition of Pluto looked like. Now, oppositions are really rough because if you think of oppositional energy, that's something's opposing something else. So it's like, now, if you use this chart, that's the 8th house. So that's other people's money and assets versus our own money and assets. So obviously that was the Great Depression. That's when everything was going on and the stock market crashed out and all that happened in the 1930s. So that's the only reference point, really. I don't want to say only, but that's the biggest reference point that we have for possibly how this particular Pluto return could affect the United States. It's a lot. I mean, it's a big overarching kind of thing. Now, I'm going to give you the dates for the exact times that Pluto return peaks. Now, because Pluto is so the furthest out, okay, of all the planets, it takes a really long time to get anywhere, okay? So it goes forward, it goes retrograde, it goes forward, it goes retrograde. I call it the windshield wiper, okay, thing. And so it's going to do that a few times, and we're going to have a few peak times. So guess what? The first one is today, 2/22/2022. First hit. I call it a hit. Okay, first hit. Then it goes backwards in retrograde, July 9th, 2022. Then it goes forward again, okay, December 31st, 2022. Okay, and then it kind of does its thing, and next year we're going to have another one last sort of direct hit, September to October of 2023, so next fall. In 2023 we'll have, not this fall but next fall, we will have another exact hit. But when you pan out and look at Pluto, anything that's 10 degrees, now all these little signs are degrees, that's what it's called. People get so confused. It's really not that confusing. So 10 degrees of a bubble either way is considered to be a conjunction. Though, you know what I always say, if you guys have been watching me for a while, it's always more intense as you get up to the peak than when it's leaving and going down the mountain. Okay, so when, in other words, when Pluto return is like kind of closer to here versus over here, that's more, the leading up to it is the most intense time, and then the releasing of it, it starts to get easier and easier. It's not easy though. Pluto return's never going to be easy. So that started in 2017, right when Donald Trump started his first year of his presidency. And then it'll be ending in 2027. So totality-wise, it's a big, wide bubble. It's like 10 years, you know? I mean, it takes Pluto, but the most intense time of it is going to be 2022 to 2023. We are in the mix of it right now, and this is the thing. It's happening at 27 degrees Capricorn. Now, if you are a Capricorn, born at 27 degrees Capricorn, meaning almost like at the end of Capricorn, later in January, you have this, you have Pluto kind of working you out right now in your chart, just letting you know. But you're not going through your Pluto return. I really want to make that clear. The United States is going through its Pluto return. So what are some very pertinent, like, because what we do in astrology is we like to look backward in order to see, okay, what could we expect? What point of reference do we have? So Roman Empire, 2018 to 2020 AD, okay, was a time of a lot of tyranny and like sort of leaders being like, you know, scandalous and deaths and murders and things. The Second Roman Empire led eventually to the fall of the Roman Empire, which was second Pluto return, and the Roman Empire was 461 to 468, and that was basically 476 was the fall of the Roman Empire. So there was a lot of like strife and different things that were happening in the Roman Empire during those two Pluto returns. But I like looking at the British Empire because I think the British Empire has a lot more, you know, when we're talking about AD, like what really happened, what, you know, we don't really know all the details, but British Empire has a little bit more sort of recent history. So the first Pluto return was in the 1300s, okay? And that was a time of a lot of strife. British Empire. The biggest thing there was a huge famine in 1315. Okay, so like there was a lot of stuff that happened then. When you get into the 1500s, like roughly 1555 or so, that was a second British Empire Pluto return. That was a very big pivotal time in the British Empire. That was when Queen Elizabeth I took over. Her mother, after she took over, was beheaded. Okay, so there was a thing with that. But that was also the start of the what was called the Golden Age, or the Elizabethan time frame, and it was a time of great literary and all these different advances that were going on in that time. It was a time of economic downtime, but also an economic uptime, which we often see with Pluto. It's like that death and then the rebirth. Something has to die before something is born. It's definitely the archetype of Pluto is Phoenix rising. It's rough. I'm just going to say that. It's not, I hear a lot of these new agey astrologers kind of posting, and I'm maybe one of them, but, a lot of them want to kind of sugarcoat this and, oh, you're just going to have to look within and blah, blah, blah. Okay. But it's usually pretty rough. Like, the lessons are hardcore. Now, the last Pluto return that we saw with the British Empire was in roughly 1801 to 1810, and a lot of really cool things kind of happened. The abolishment of slavery was one of the important things, and I want to go back for a moment. In the 1500s, that was when in the British Empire, that was the start of slavery, and then on the third Pluto return, after that was the end of slavery in the British Empire. So, so sometimes we see things initiate and then something died, okay, in that time frame. And I would say absolutely the slavery was great that it was abolished, wonderful that it was abolished. And usually think about a Plutonian thing, right? Control and power and misuse of, being abusive and, usually when there's an abolition of slavery, for example, it wasn't because everything was going well. It was because it was horrible, and it was cruel, and it was inhumane, and all those things. So it had to end. And so remember, something dies before something is born. So, so it was the second Pluto return in the British Empire started slavery there. And then the third Pluto return ended slavery there. So, it's not all down, hill, but it's a lot. King George fell into madness, okay, is what they called it back then. But he apparently had very bad dementia and had a problem, There was a lot of military conflicts going on with the 1500s and the 1800s. England and the British Empire was very... kind of involved with a lot of military conflicts. The beginning of the 1800s, in that time frame, the Pluto return in the British Empire also was the Industrial Revolution. So that was the time when we kind of, started working and, talk about slavery, right? I mean, that was kind of a form of slavery back then, working long hours, child labor, all that stuff. But that was the start of that back then. The other biggest thing is in 1801 was the creation of the United Kingdom. Okay, so again, something goes down before something is reborn, and so here we are. We had a creation of the United Kingdom, and that was very important. So it's not all bad, and in fact, the Golden Age, the 1500s with the British Empire, where you have to think of this as almost like a decade, it was a very important time in history of really great advances during that time in the 1500s. So coming into what can we expect in the United States, so I can't even look at this chart and say anything otherwise. I mean, I think we're in it. We already know kind of maybe what's going on, but Pluto is in the second house of money, wealth creation, things that we value, cars, planes, houses, boats, whatever monetary financial asset that you might have. The Pluto return, by the way, on March 3rd, I sort of posted this, but Venus, Mars, and Pluto are going to all form a triple conjunction, and that's going to hit our Pluto return in the U.S. directly. They're all three going to be in alignment together. I posted about that. I'm a little bit, I don't want to say very, but I'm pretty worried about that date, especially with what's been brewing with, Russia, Ukraine, and all the different things that have been going on. Stock market as well. We got to watch that date and potentially make adjustments. Now, there's a famous astrologer by the name of Evangeline Adams, who in the 1900s, early 1900s, she was a famous astrologer, and she had a really big, robust following for back then. She had a newsletter that she would mail out. It's sort of like what I have, I guess now, only I have the tidbits, astro tidbits that I post. But she actually predicted the great stock market, depression, and the crash of the stock market. And she sent out, that was during that Pluto opposition in the United States chart, she sent out newsletters to all of her people and said, sell your stocks before, and she's very famous for that little piece of astrology history. She was a very important astrologer, actually, in the early 1900s. She had a whole other thing with a court where the United States actually recognized astrology because of her in the court system. But getting back to this Pluto return, it was, so it's going to be in the second house of money, honey. I mean, and economics and all that. So I can't give you advice on what to do with your stocks and what to do with your investments and what to do with all that. But I would say you might want to go the safe route, maybe. I can't give you advice, but that's, because remember, something has to fall before something comes up. So that is going to be happening in the second house of money, and it's powerful. It's in Capricorn, so Capricorn is definitely who's in power, who's in charge, banks, it's large financial institutions, it's corporate America, it's all the good stuff, it's really going to be quite powerful. And so this is a very big time in history for all of us, and I'm not saying this to scare anybody. I'm just I'm reporting, okay? This is basically what the deal is. But using the example of looking at the British Empire and the Saturn return, the Pluto returns that's a famous return, Saturn return. The Pluto returns that the British Empire has gone through, or had gone through, the last one being 1801. And by the way, the British Empire was still trying to adjust without us. We broke away in 1776, right? And so, they were starting, that was a little bit, only 30 years later or something, so they were still adjusting from that. And so there's a lot of changes. We've been under a lot of changes. We've had a lot of stuff, that we've gone through in those last 3 years. And like I said, just for us, we are going through a big thing. Now, I want to do a whole separate broadcast because it's too much to fit in all in one broadcast. But I did pull up Ukraine chart just to see what's going on. And the Ukraine is actually going through its Saturn return. So we talked about Pluto returns. And I just mentioned earlier, Saturn returns can be a very hard time. It can be a time of hardship. Well, the Ukraine Saturn is in Aquarius. Current Saturn's here, but this strife didn't just start. And remember that triple conjunction that we have with the Venus, Mars, and Pluto that's coming to a head on March 3rd? Well, it's coming very close to Ukraine's natal Saturn in Aquarius. Okay, that's all coming kind of to a head, all in that one spot. That's not good. I'm just saying, this is not good. That's not good. I don't know how else to say it. And then current Saturn is conjunct the Ukraine's moon. Okay, and that's not fun either because the moon is our feelings, and it's our feelings and our emotions, and the feelings of a nation, and the feelings of a country. You know, it's heavy. Saturn sitting on the moon is heavy. We are going to go through that as well. It's not quite there yet, but next year in 2023, Saturn's going to hit our moon, because our moon's also in Aquarius. Ukraine's moon is in Aquarius, and our moon's in an Aquarius as well. And so you can see Saturn's kind of coming over to our moon. So there's a heaviness in the feeling. Moon is our feeling. It's our intuition. It's our how we express our moods and how we feel. I don't know about you guys. I've been feeling a little heavy with some of this stuff that's been coming out. Devin, oh, you made a great point here. I can't read the whole thing, Devin, but I can see that where you're going with that. Let me just see. Yeah, Pluto is exposing the shadowy energies of our society, especially opposing Mercury. Exactly. That is absolutely true. So Pluto is the shadow side, you know. If you looked at Jungian astrology or Carl Jung, you know, that was all that shadow work. You know, the shadow side is that side of yourself. A lot of people don't know what the shadow really means, but it's just how it sounds. It's that side you don't really love about yourself. Okay, and so it brings out violence. It brings out, you know, extreme sort of views. I mean, think about what just happened in 2020, you know, 2017, 2018, 2019, you know, all these time frames that we've been kind of coming in. Pluto's been kind of coming into its you know, peak. Whew, it's a lot, you know. And so Pluto shines. It's kind of, remember, it's Hades. It's the lord of the underworld, right? It's Hades was like kind of like the devil sort of looking, you know, type of dude. And so when you think about that archetype, you think about what do you not like about yourself, right? Or maybe it's a habit you want to give up. Like a lot of people have release toxic things during Pluto cycles. It doesn't have to be all negative stuff. It could be like an addiction that you have, a habit that you have. You want to release that. Well, now the United States is having a chance to release its toxicity in a way. I mean, you know, leading up to 1776, it wasn't good. You know, the United States was going through a horrible time. They were tarring and feathering people on the streets in Boston. It was a very bad time in our history, which, if you think about it, led up to the Declaration of Independence. You know, I mean, it led up to the Constitution of the United States. It led up to all this stuff that we had that, you know, kind of changed who we are, you know, and even influenced who we are now. So is that going to get challenged? Yeah, Roe versus Wade, for sure. It's all getting challenged. You know, all that stuff is getting challenged right now. You know, what's our rights and what are, you know, that will all get challenged. The original forefathers that we had, the founding fathers, okay, that you know, did all this and helped us to, you know, have that. Yeah, it's all gonna get tested and pushed. Some of it will make it through, you know. I mean, Pluto doesn't always like completely destroy. I mean, it does sometimes, but again, it gives you a chance. I always compare Pluto to a forest fire. You know, sometimes you need to have a forest fire. Some little forest fires are good because then there's new growth and because sometimes forests get a little overcrowded, and so there needs to be beautiful new soil and nutrients, and, you know, the ash, you know, kind of creates good soil conditions and stuff, and it's rich for future generations to come. So we're going to be having this opportunity to kind of almost go back to the drawing board and recreate where we're coming from and what are we doing here, you know. And all of that is going to be under question. There's going to be a lot of constitution sort of I think challenges throughout this time, for sure, and we've already seen it. So there's that, and there's definitely like I said, leaderships, you know, the powers that be in the nation and all those things. President Biden, yes, he's going to be worked out. You know, whether you're a fan or not, he stepped up to the plate in this time of wanting to do this, his soul wanting to do this, and it's not going to be an easy task for him. His chart, which I happen to print out also, is somewhat similar in a way to the United States. We don't know Joe Biden's exact birth time. It was a guesstimate from his memory, so we don't exactly know. But his where is it? His Pluto is in the same spot. Pluto, that Venus and Mars also current time, is in the second house of money, finances, and what do you value? What do you value? Usually it's values monetarily, though I've seen sometimes just values kind of being like, what do we value here? What's important? And when we think about what's going on right now with the shortages and all the supplies, and where do you put your money? You know, I mean, he's been trying to do like infrastructure and things like that. That's very Capricorn. You know, if you think about Capricorn's like really into building and structure, Saturn structure, right? So infrastructure for sure could go through a very big rehab at this time, which is not a bad thing. You know, I mean, it's not a terrible thing right now. So, you know, but he's all of the eclipses this year in Taurus and Scorpio, because they're all going to be Taurus, Scorpio are going to be right up in his grill, like I had said. I think my last video or the video before that I did about the nodes of the moon. And if you guys don't follow me on YouTube, please go over and follow me, because I am posting a lot of trying to post videos there. You know, but so the eclipses for Joe Biden are going to be affecting. Okay, because he has his moon is in Taurus, and a lot of planets, his sun, Venus, Mercury, and Mars are all in Scorpio here, and so that's a thing. We don't know. I was looking at Putin's chart. Here's the thing. It's so interesting because, you know, what we're hearing coming out of Russia, like they're saying we're not doing anything, and like all these tanks we're seeing like footage of tanks going in. I don't know. So it's just, there's a lot of like he said, she said. We're not really sure what is exactly happening, you know. And so this is very similar, because Putin, we don't even know if this is his birth date. It says 1952, but there's other reports of him being born in 1950, so we don't even know the exact birth date of Putin. If this is accurate, he's a Libra, a lot of planets in Libra. His sun is conjunct Saturn, which is not fun. And his Venus is in Scorpio. So, and Scorpio rising. Again, this is just an estimate, so we're not even sure if that's accurate. Moon in Gemini for Putin. So anyway, so I don't want to go too much on a tangent with that, though I do feel that we are going to be affected by this this possible war and all these things that are kind of occurring, and so it's not going to be necessarily easy. So yeah, so I hope that helps you guys. I don't know if it does or doesn't, but it's an educational time, and it's good to kind of know what we're dealing with. Rights as far as masking and, you know, should we go into schools or not into school, all these different things that are going on with all this stuff with the virus we've had and different things. I don't know, it's been a lot. It's just been a lot. So obviously United States Pluto return is going to really shape us and reshape us. And again, what is meant to come through will come through after a lot of change and a lot of challenge and then what's meant to sort of leave and die off is meant to leave and die off. And so all we can do is really just, you know, again, it's not our personal Saturn returns. Pluto returns. It's not our personal Pluto returns. So I want you to remember that if there's a lot of hard time, if you're having a lot of news and you're getting overwhelmed and you're feeling a little down or you're feeling depressed, there's a lot of people right now in our country that are massively, overdoses are through the roof, suicide is through the roof, And if you think of shadow stuff, that's all Plutonian shadow stuff. So how do you kind of navigate this? Because I want to kind of sort of bring it back. Like, how do you navigate all this stuff? Well, it's heavy. Don't be afraid of the shadow. I know that that sounds a little contradictive, you know, or I don't know, challenging maybe in some ways, but don't look. These are hard topics and hard times, and I think we have to look at, you know, I'm an Aries, so we have to look at it like direct. We need to talk about this stuff. We need to talk about the suicides. We need to talk about depression. We need to talk about mental health in our country. We need to talk about addiction in our country. That's all Plutonian stuff. And I think the more we try, look, we've been trying to say there's no mental illness. Oh, it's only for those people, like, except for everybody. Everybody knows somebody that has some kind of mental health struggle, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety. It's an epidemic. It's a pandemic. They've been saying on the news, depression's a pandemic in our country. ODing and addiction and alcohol deaths, it's all through the roof. So why are we denying it? Why don't we look at it straightforward and have those hard discussions? That's the Plutonian. That's also Plutonian. Pluto likes to jump in the deep end and really just hash it out and talk about it and air it out. So I always say, if you think of Hades, the lord of the underworld, okay, the darkness, he's living in the dank, moist, sticky places, okay? Shine the friggin' light on him. Shine the light on it. You know, addiction has a hard time surviving in the shadow. Mental health, you know, I mean, when we can talk about, hey, pass the peas, how's your mental health today? You know, that's a great thing to be able to talk about these things and to really explore those topics fully. That's a really big thing. Psychology is a very Plutonian topic, you know, when you think of the depths of psychology. This is not really the time to, I think, have the positivity of, like, almost like a toxic positivity, like, no, everything's fine, we'll just deny this reality. I think that actually it's kind of more leaning into it, not succumbing to it, not letting it crush you like a bug, you know what I mean? Like, that can feel that way. It can feel very heavy, but rather having open dialogue about it and sharing is caring, right? Sharing is caring, that we can all talk and not be ashamed. Hey, look, you guys know I've been having a hard time lately, even myself. I fell. Okay, I fell and I broke 3 bones. My dog 2 weeks ago was just mauled by another dog. I've had some stuff, right? Just because I'm an astrologer and I can name these cycles does not mean I'm immune to these cycles. But I've posted about it. I've talked about this stuff with people because I want connection. You know, I don't know anybody on this planet. I've never done a reading where someone was like, nothing has ever happened to me. I don't know. I'm 50 years old and I'm fine. You know, it's like everybody goes through these hard times, but yet for some reason we use like television and other things as a way of like a barometer, like, you know, the Brady Bunch or Leave It to Beaver, or, you know, some other Full House even, you know, like all these different shows that we've used as kind of barometer of you know, this is perfect, but nobody is actually perfect and nobody has that in their life. And so I just want to say that that's a very Pluto type of thing. And cleaning up, you know, when we look at, we can't forget that Capricorn is an earth sign. Pluto is toxicity and problems and all that. Cleaning up the environment is another potential positive that could come out of this. Unfortunately, it might be through adversity, you know, that's kind of how Pluto works. But saying like, hey, maybe we need to ration water even more. Maybe we shouldn't be living in the middle of the desert where we have to pipe in water for our swimming pool and our waterfalls that we have in the backyard that's wasting water. You know, all that stuff could be a very Plutonian thing when it comes to the earth, and because the water, you know, supply runs underground and it's very deep, right? And so talk about Hades, right? The water supply is underground water supply. So that's another thing that could come out of this, is that we could again kind of rise up and hopefully clean up some of this stuff Often you guys will see me post on my Astro Tidbits. If there's a Pluto thing, I always say there is a chance to clean this up, people. Like we can clean up whatever toxic thing has been going on. There is a chance to do that. And so that's a Pluto thing too. Now, when we think about Pluto, it depends on where Pluto is transiting in your current astrological chart. 27 degrees Pluto is the end of Pluto. It's like, if you were born at the end of Capricorn, that's basically where it is. So if you're a January, 17th, 16th, 15th, 20th, baby, you're going to be Pluto is right on your sun right now. And that can feel crushing sometimes when those Pluto transits happen. Those can be hard. But again, we have an opportunity or a chance to learn something and to release something that's not working. I see a lot of Pluto transits happen, and you find out who your friends are. We'll just say that. And so the United States is about to find out who our allies are, our true allies, and who is not an ally. And we'll find that out, and that's a time that can happen. It's a lot. So reach out if you have dark thoughts, dark feelings, or here's the thing. Some people have said this to me privately. They're like, I watch your videos and sometimes I don't even understand all the things you're saying, but I don't feel like such a weirdo because you said that this is a time when, and for some reason that day I was just feeling really bad. And, so, okay, that's a beautiful thing, that's a beautiful thing. So I hope that this all helps everybody. I'm going to pull a card. What do we need to know about this Pluto return right now? The one that we're currently in, as far as, in February, because I'm going to keep talking about this. This is going to be like one of those, like every time I'm on, I've been mentioning it for a few years now, like we're coming up to the Pluto return and we're coming up to the Pluto return. And so we're here now. So we're going to have to face the shadow, whatever that may be. Pluto stuff can be a little scary, so we're going to have to face that. And facing it and shining the light on it is the way to. It's almost like if you had an infestation of cockroaches and they all come out, the creepy crawlies, they all come out in the dark. Well, shine the light on it and they all run, right? That's a Pluto thing. I hope that helps. All right, what do we need to know about this Pluto return, United States Pluto return? Right now, I'm going to do current time. What do we need to know about this Pluto return, current time? Woof, wow. Can't be any more clear than that. Peace. We need peace. I wish we had peace, right? The world peace. The peace with the U.S. Here's the other thing. We talked about, the little bit of I don't want to say a civil war that's going on, but almost like a passive-aggressive civil war that's going on in our country of the right versus the left and all the stuff, We need peace. That's what we need. So I'm going to read it. Archangel Chamuel. Oops. That was my, I have a rose quartz on my lap, so it just dropped. Archangel Chamuel. Peace comes from remembering that only love is real. Okay, fear feels real. I always say, which do you have faith in more? Do you have faith in love more, or do you have faith in fear more? A lot of this is fear. There's going to be a lot of fears, energy around right now. A lot of scare tactics and different things like intimidation. We're feeling the reverberations of it, especially if you're sensitive. So right now, peace is what is real. Love is what is real, and that will create peace in our hearts. A lot of the people that live, in the Ukraine and in Russia, like as an example, they don't even want any of this stuff to happen. It's the leaders and the different things that are going on that are creating the upheaval and the unrest and stuff like that. The sort of regular people, the normal people, the regular citizens they don't even want that stuff. So remember, this is what is real, is peace, and we can look at the dove that kind of creates that beauty. So I hope that helps everybody. I'm not staying on long because I have not eaten dinner yet. I have had a full day, work day, and I have not eaten dinner yet. So I'm going to go do that. But if you guys are wanting a personalized astrological session to see what's going on in your chart, where's Pluto for you, where's Saturn for you, and all the different players, definitely feel free to text me. You can send me a message through Facebook, but I do get texts faster. Yeah, I hope everybody, peace be with you, okay, with all of you, because we have to remember that, having peace in our hearts. All right, everybody, take care, namaste, and have a wonderful, blessed evening.